Hi everyone, how are you? I'm Edward from English Made Easy, and welcome to my Parts of Speech series. In this series, I will look at the main parts of speech in the English language and give you a detailed overview of each. Let's start with the basics. What is a part of speech? A part of speech is the category that a word is assigned based on its function, grammar, and syntax. Take the word boredom, for example. Boredom is a noun, but it also has an adjective, verb, and adverb form. These are boring, to bore, and boringly. In total, there are 8 major parts of speech in the English language: nouns, adjectives, verbs, adverbs, pronouns, conjunctions, interjections, and prepositions. Knowing the correct forms of the parts of speech and when to use them will make your English sound more natural, fluent, and accurate. Stay tuned as I make parts of speech easy. In today's lesson, we're going to learn all about verbs. So if you're serious about English, take out your notebook. Let's get to work. Understanding what a verb is not too difficult. What can make them confusing, however, is that we modify verbs more than we change any other kind of word in the English language. Verbs can have a present simple form, a past simple form, a past participle form, an infinitive form, a continuous form. That's a lot of forms. Even more confusing is knowing when to use each kind of form. But don't worry, because this lesson will definitely make things much clearer for you. In this lesson, we'll cover what a verb is, when to use a verb, different verb forms, different verb tenses, different verb tense voices, as well as some common verb endings, so you'll be able to identify verbs more easily. At the end of this lesson, I'll also cover some very special kinds of verbs, so make sure you keep watching to the end to check out those. As always, let's cover the basics. What exactly is a verb? A verb is simply an action verb or a doing verb. It can also explain long-term states or occurrences. Verbs like see, look, and watch describe actions we do with our eyes. A verb like have describes a long-term state or occurrence, obviously for things like ownership. Every language in the world has a huge range of verbs to describe all the unique things that humans do and the things that everything else in the world does. A verb is almost always paired with a subject to show who is doing the verb, or in some cases, who the verb is being done to. Take this simple sentence as an example. James ate breakfast at 9 a.m. In that sentence, James was the subject and ate was the verb. How about this sentence? Sam woke up very early today. In that sentence, Sam is the subject and woke up is the verb. Wake up is actually a very special kind of verb known as a phrasal verb. A phrasal verb is usually formed with a verb plus a preposition. If you'd like to learn more about phrasal verbs, make sure you hit that subscribe button because I'll have a video coming out teaching you all about phrasal verbs in the future. If you listened carefully, you would have noticed that in the sentence, the example sentence that is, I gave the word woke up. But when talking about the verb later, I referred to it as wake up. Why did I do this? Well, this is the part of English where verbs are unique. Verbs can take on many different verb forms. The most common verb forms are present simple, past simple, the past participle, the present participle, and the infinitive. As always, understanding what those words mean and when to use those correctly is much more important than just memorizing the jargon for the terms. However, learning the jargon, learning those technical terms can help you in your studies in the future, so it is worth your time spending a little bit and putting in a little bit of extra effort to memorize them. Let's take the verb wake up and make sample sentences using it in every one of its verb forms. Afterwards, we'll analyze them and see why exactly that verb form was used in that sentence. The infinitive. I like to wake up early on Sunday morning so I can get lots of work done. Present simple, or verb 1. He always wakes up late and has to get ready for work really quickly. Past simple or verb 2. She missed her flight because she woke up too late. Past participle or verb 3. What is the latest time you have ever woken up? Present participle or continuous form. The surgery went very well. Your son is waking up as we speak. All of those previous sentences use the verb wake up in all of its different forms, which makes us ask a really important question. When should I use each form? Well, that comes down to everyone's favorite topic, English grammar. The grammar rules of the particular aspect of the language you'd like to use will determine which form is the correct form. The most common rule, which will determine which verb form you're going to use, are the English tenses. In total, there are 12 English tenses. That sounds like a lot to learn, but in fact, once you learn the basic classifications, it becomes quite simple. First, we can divide the tenses into 3 time periods: the present, the past, and the future. Each of those 3 time periods is further broken down into one of 4 categories: simple, continuous, perfect, and perfect continuous. If we do some quick mental maths, we can work out that with 3 time periods and 4 categories per time period, we end up with 12 different tenses. The English tenses are most commonly used to express when an action took place or when an action will take place in the future. Depending on the time in which we want to speak about, we will have to change the tense that we choose to use. So how do these verb forms connect to the tenses? Well, each tense has its own unique structure, and the different structures will require you to use a specific verb form. For example, if we look at the sentence, yesterday I woke up at 8, you'll notice that the verb wake up is in its past simple form, woke up. The structure of that sentence is the subject, I, plus the verb, woke up. That's past simple tense. Let's take a look at another example. Have you ever eaten rambutan? In that sentence, I use the verb 3 or past participle form of the verb to eat, eaten. That's because in that sentence I was using present perfect tense. Memorizing when and how to use each of the English tenses will definitely make your English sound better and more accurate. But don't forget, it is not required to be 100% accurate if your focus is more on just communicating. Work on making sure that your language is understandable as a priority instead of memorizing the details of every English tense. In fact, there are many English tenses which we use really infrequently. If you'd like to learn which of the English tenses are the most important, then check out this playlist I've made, linked above. In that playlist, I go through the most important tenses and give you the vital information you need to speak accurately. A big confusion for many learners who are studying about the English tenses is the difference between active voice and passive voice. But don't worry, I've got you covered. Check out this video I made on passive voice to understand both when and how to use it correctly. The basic difference is that active voice is used when the subject does something. Passive voice is used when something happens to the subject. There are some unique specialized structures to passive voice, so if you really want to understand it well and if you really want to use it correctly, I definitely recommend checking out the video. Now that we've covered verb forms, verb tenses, and tense voices, let's have a look at some common verb endings to help you identify verbs in a sentence. I've chosen these specific examples because they can actually help you understand the meaning of the verb based only on the suffix. The suffix is the part of the word that goes at the very end. All of these verbs have suffixes which indicate that something is happening, becoming, or being made. ATE, such as with replicate, create, or imitate. EN, such as with strengthen, soften, or worsen. IFY, such as with specify, clarify, or terrify. ISE, or IZE in American English, such as with criticize, specialize, or memorize. Don't forget, all those verbs I just gave you were in their infinitive form. So, if you'd like to use them in a sentence, you'll have to change the verb form to match the grammar or the tense. At the beginning of this lesson, I told you that if you stick around till the end, I'll reward you with a few special verbs. So well done if you've made it this far. The special verbs I'd like to look at today are auxiliary verbs, non-continuous verbs, and modal verbs. In a sentence like, I don't play tennis, play is the main verb. How about the verb don't? Well, that's an auxiliary verb. An auxiliary verb is a supporting verb, and it is often used to indicate the tense being used. It's more commonly used in the negative form of the sentence or the interrogative form when I want to ask a question. These verbs do not change the meaning of the main verb at all. They are there simply to support the main verb or clarify what the main verb means to the listener. What confuses many people is when an auxiliary verb sounds exactly the same as a main verb. So let's check that out. Do is the auxiliary verb most commonly used with present simple tense. But do can also be a main verb. Understanding the structure of a tense will let you know whether or not do is being used as an auxiliary verb or as a main verb. Do you usually do your homework on time? In that sentence, the first do was the auxiliary verb. The second do was the main verb. Have is another verb which can be both. Has he had dinner yet? The first have, in its present simple form, was the auxiliary verb. The second have, in its past participle form, was the main verb. The reason I had to use the main verb in its past participle form in that case was because I was using present perfect tense. Next, let's take a look at modal verbs. Modal verbs are often considered a type of auxiliary verb, but instead of just supporting the main verb and specifying a tense or a time period, they actually modify the meaning of the main verb. They can add possibility, recommendations, or even imagination to the main verb. If you'd like to learn a little bit more about modal verbs, check out this video I made on conditional sentences. I give you a good rundown of modal verbs and how they can modify a main verb in that lesson. Here's a quick tip for you, however. After a modal verb, we always use the infinitive form of a verb. You cannot say, I must arrived. We have to say, I must arrive. The final special kind of verb we'll look at today are non-continuous verbs. What makes these verbs special, as the name suggests, is that we cannot use them in their continuous form. If you see this verb in its continuous form, it'll have a very different meaning. Common examples of non-continuous verbs are want, believe, and love. We say, I want some food, not I am wanting some food. I believe you, not I am believing you. I love it, not I'm loving it. That's right, McDonald's is a grammatically incorrect company. If you'd like to see some more examples of non-continuous verb, then check out the description below. I've included a link to a great resource page where you can check out a long list of non-continuous verbs. Do you have any questions about verbs or anything related to them? Post your questions in the comment section below and I'll be sure to answer them. If you think this video would help a friend or a classmate, then make sure to share it with them. And don't forget to keep studying. Thanks for watching this lesson of English Made Easy. If you feel like this video helped you, please give it a like, share it with your friends, or even consider subscribing to see more of our videos. If you have a question that you want answered, please post it in the comments section below. Or if you'd like to join our community, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or even support us on Patreon. You can find the links to all of these below. Thanks for watching and keep learning.